This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to 479 Spotlight, where we provide free promotion to local businesses in NWA to give them more exposure and create more trust in the community. Overall, we want to provide an inside look to our local business heroes that keep NWA running. My name is Brock Holland, a small business owner in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and founder of 479 Spotlight. And today we have Michael Bollero with OneGauge. That's all one word, OneGauge, based in Springdale, Arkansas. These interviews typically have two main focuses. First, we're going to address any potential customers that OneGauge services, what the business is and how it functions. And then we're going to shift more to talk about Michael, him as an entrepreneur, his journey as an entrepreneur in getting this business up and running. So Michael, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you,
Awesome.
Brock?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Good.
being here. Appreciate it. Let's start talk about OneGauge. In a sentence or two, what does OneGauge do?
Yeah, so we build custom digital gauges for cars, trucks, boats, pretty much anything with an engine.
Okay, custom digital gauges, nice.
Yeah.
And how long has OneGauge been around?
It's been about 3, 4 years now. I started at the end of 2017 with kind of the design and the development, and then really didn't launch the product until about 2019. So about 2 years really selling the products.
Okay, nice. And then who would you say is like the ideal customer for a OneGauge product? Who do you serve?
Good question. So, the automotive kind of the automotive population, you've got a spectrum of people from, on one side, they go and buy a new vehicle, they never want to touch it. They take it into the dealership to maintain it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. It's just a, point A to B transportation. And then on the other end, you've got people who are completely customizing their vehicles, who are building something from the ground up, hot rods and all kinds of things. And they want to get their hands on the vehicle and they want to make it theirs, right? So
Right.
we're more on that customization end for people who are really wanting to do something unique, or maybe they're putting a different engine in their vehicle and their old gauges don't work, things like that. So that's
Oh,
typically.
yeah. Yeah, okay. I could see that being a good practical use for it. I mean, I know people have got trucks that like, yeah, the speedometer doesn't even work anymore, but they still drive it. I'm just like, that's
Exactly.
crazy, but okay,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yep.
But then also, I'm assuming individuals that I don't know if performance based, like whether if it's on the track or
Yep.
those type of situations. Okay, okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, I'm assuming, do you have a lot of competition here in Northwest Arkansas? I don't know.
Not here, because the you know, these enthusiasts are spread out all over the country, all over the world, right? So,
Right.
there's a few kind of key competitors, a few big companies that play. Honestly, I don't even know where most of their headquarters are, but they're spread out all over the place
Okay.
throughout the United States. So, most of my business is done online. I've done some transactions here in Northwest Arkansas, but for the most part, I'm shipping to Texas or the West Coast, California. I have units going to Europe and the East as well. So all over the place. Australia is big on automotive stuff, so quite a bit going
Okay.
there too.
Nice. Okay. Well, then, what does a customer get from OneGauge that it's hard to get from another competitor?
Yeah, good question. So what differentiates our products? There's a lot of things. So I think the biggest thing is really the ability to customize it and make it your own. So most, there are quite a few other digital gauges that are out there, but most of them come with, limited designs, limited options for different screen sizes, things like that. And so with us, really, the sky is the limit. We can, because it's the product is based on a really simple computer, you can basically plug and play it with anything. So, different sizes of screens. I'm constantly making new designs and things. I've got people that come to me and say, hey, I want my gauges to look like Knight Rider, the TV show, as an example. So you do these custom, one-off gauges. Like I've got one that looks like the inside of an X-wing from Star Wars, right? So just
Oh,
fun stuff like that. And then the more serious, of course, more standard looking gauges. But really, you can you can do anything with it. And that's what's different, is that, when you go buy a product from a big manufacturer, you get what you get, and that's really it. You can maybe toggle through a few things, customize a few things, but I build everything unique to each customer and exactly to their needs. So, that helps as well in not overpaying for features that they're never going to use. So I think that's probably the thing that sticks out most,
Okay, that's great. That's so 100% customization, and even to the very unique. A Night Rider dashboard would be pretty cool. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I've done a
Okay.
number of requests.
Wow. So just to kind of dig in a little bit more to help somebody that might be listening, like, what does a customer's life look like after they've purchased your product?
Yeah,
Like,
so
yeah.
yeah, one of the things too that differentiates us is the customer service. When you order a product from me, you're talking to me, I'm guiding you through the order process, and then of course if you have any issues, maybe a sensor doesn't fit correctly or doesn't work as you expected it, I can help troubleshoot it on the end, because I built the system, I know it inside and out, I know exactly how everything works, and how it should all come together. So the great thing about the product is, because it is so customizable, you're not, like I said, stuck with one thing. So, if in the future you want to move it to a different vehicle, you can do that, even if it's a completely different, maybe you had it in like a 1980 Toyota Supra and you buy a 2022 Dodge Ram and you want to move, it still works with those other vehicles because of the different options and things like that we allow it to be configured to work with. So, there's a whole lot of customization there. And then there's, of course, you can, like I talked about, the screen designs, you can change the way it looks and feels. You're not locked into having a few round gauges and you're stuck with that forever. Just by tapping on the screen, you can go through, like I said, you could change it from an X-Wing to the inside of a Lamborghini just by hitting a button, right? So that changes the driving experience, because it can make it feel like a different vehicle. It makes it fun and interesting, and it lets you kind of refresh your driving experience each time you drive.
Cool. And then what about, like, this is me just kind of going off script here, but as far as functionality concerns in regards to, the type of engine and the wheel diameter and like making sure that everything reads right, like, is this just plugging directly into the CPU of the car, or like, how are you making that work correctly?
Yeah. So there's really three different kinds. Older vehicles are totally analog. There's no electronics, or very, very little. And so we have setups for those. Basically, you're installing a sensor directly onto the engine, right? Just like,
Right.
just like kind of the vehicle came from the factory, you're kind of mimicking that, except that a computer is reading the sensor, gives you more accuracy, faster updates, things like that. And then, yeah, what you mentioned, it can plug up directly to, it's called the OBD2 port. So that's the little diagnostic port that every vehicle after 1996 has. So
Mm-hmm.
luckily, those are relatively standardized. And so we're able to pull a lot of the most common, sensor readings out of that. And that's why I said you could take it from an older vehicle and plug it into a new one. And, with a few hardware tweaks, you basically have that compatibility. And then you've got guys, the real kind of high-end users have put in completely different engine computers. These are the guys who are doing engine swaps and things like that.
Right.
And those have their own, typically proprietary communication. But sometimes if that's not available, then you're kind of able, I'm able to go in and hacking is not the right word. It's not the most politically correct word, but basically listen to the communication and figure out how it's communicating and what it's communicating, so that I can offer that to my customers as well.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. So extremely customized in any circumstance or situation. That's incredible. All right. Well, let's do a shout out here. What's the best way that someone can buy this product?
Yeah. So we've got a website, the1gauge.com.
Okay.
And then we're on Facebook. I'm always putting up videos and content and things. It's facebook.com/OneGauge. And then probably the best way, if someone's really interested, I really like that kind of conversation to take place, so they know exactly how the product works and they know what to expect. So they can reach me. The email is info@theonegauge.com. So those
Perfect.
three are my primary communication methods.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's shift gears here and let's talk about you and
Sure.
why and how and what. So let's start with, what was it that made you want to start this business?
Yeah, so you interviewed Joe Smith a few weeks ago with
Over,
his used car dealership
yeah,
over in
Overcrest
on the other
Motorsports.
side
Yeah,
of town. Yep,
yeah.
over Crest. So I bought a truck, an old an old really ugly pickup truck that was painted with house paint from him when we bought our first home in 2015. And he made it very clear. Joe's awesome. He's been a friend for a long time. He was like, this is going to be fun for you, not only to get the work done that you want to do on your house, but to tinker with. And that just ignited something. I grew up working on cars a little bit with my dad and things, but I've always been one. I've kind of got in and got to do it myself to really enjoy it, right? I'm not much of a spectator. So when I got that truck, I really started getting into to fixing it and just making it run a little bit better and things like that. And that just kind of started a passion that I have for me, it's as much about, maybe it's because I grew up building Legos or something, but it's as much about the actual getting in and getting your hands dirty and doing the engineering, the tinkering, as it is the driving and the experience of owning the vehicle. So I've really enjoyed it for the last, I don't know, 6, 7 years now, tinkering with cars and doing repairs and things like that, and just kind of furthering my knowledge and understanding of that. So, I have an older Ford Bronco that I wanted to modernize a little bit. I like the classic feel, but I also like to know exactly what's going on with the engine. Any kind of overheating. If your fluid pressures and things are too low, it can cause all kinds of issues, and just better to avoid those things from the outset. So that's why I started, was to better understand what was happening on that truck. So that was kind of the beginning, and then it's just, honestly, the product from day one has been guided by customer requests. People saying, "Hey, this is cool, but what if it could do this?" And so I figure out a way to do that, and then it's just, stair stepping from there and improving it for the customer.
And so how were people finding out like about you and what you had? Like, were you just like sharing what you were doing in forums and groups, or were you
Yeah,
trying to like offer this as a product? Like, how did that get running that way?
yeah. So social media has really been, the key, and it works out well because the older automotive community, they're not that interested in this type of product. They want to keep it, because they grew up driving these cars with a very standard looking dash, and that's what they want to keep, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
oh
mine
yeah,
is,
or their dad had it and they want it to look the way
yeah,
their dad had it. Yeah, 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 I'm with you.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, for me, it's the younger guys, the younger crowd who are, kind of like me, interested in tinkering and doing something different. And those are the guys that are on social media as well. So, it really worked out well. So I started with the Facebook page, and it's just, advertising on Facebook. To be honest, I think the most effective advertising I did, I called it like guerrilla Facebook marketing, where I basically went in and I just listed my product for sale on Facebook Marketplace all over the country. Like I had probably 50 different ads running, and don't tell Facebook, right? But
Nah,
they've shut this down since then. You can't really do it anymore. But I had ads all over the country, and that's just how I built, at least a knowledge that my product existed. And then I guide people from there to the website or the Facebook page, and that tended to convert into sales. And so
sales.
that really kind of kicked it off. And then from there, the automotive community is small enough that you get a lot of word of mouth. I continue to advertise on Facebook and Instagram and all that. And so it's a lot of, that's the biggest trial, of course, at the beginning of this, is how to get it in front of people so that they know that there's alternatives to the kind of, stodgy, very limited gauges that are out there.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. What was the toughest thing that you went through in getting started from a business perspective?
Oh man,
Big can of
there,
worms I just opened.
yeah, it is. I think just what I described. At the beginning, it's how do I even, number one, how do I let people know I exist, and number two, how do I get them to trust me to give me their money, right? Because these things aren't cheap. I mean, electronics and screens and all the stuff, plus all the labor and the time that goes into making them, You
Hmm.
know, a comparable product from a major manufacturer can run $1,000 to $2,000 easily, just a base, and I'm at typically about half that, but that's still a lot of money to give a random dude on the internet who's making their own, product, right? So I
Right.
totally understand. I think I got lucky in some ways. I found some people, my very first customer was a guy down in Bologna, Arkansas, who was like, "Hey, you're close enough that if I have issues, I can come up there and talk to you, right?" But he took a chance, and from there, you just build that credibility, customer by customer, and help people realize, through constantly demonstrating the kind of legitimacy of the product, that it's something that they can trust,
Nice.
especially in
Okay.
a vehicle. When yeah, $500 seems like a lot, but in a $20,000 or $30,000 vehicle that you're trying to protect, it's an investment. And if you can't trust the gauges to do what they say they're going to do, then it's a waste
Right.
of money.
All right. And if you were to start over from day one, is there anything that you would do differently?
I don't know that I could have done much differently. It would have been great to have more employees and help from the beginning, but at the beginning stages, you just can't afford it, and you don't have constant. You don't have a constant flow of customers to where you can really support being able to hire somebody. I think that's been one of the toughest things, is just the time element and being able
Hmm.
to commit. I've got a young family. I stay busy. I've got a full-time job. Like, this is just part-time for me. So, being able to commit my evenings and my nights, and to the frustration of my wife, a lot of times late nights, um, not being able to spend time with family and things as much. It's tough at the beginning, but I've always had the mindset that you try to do the hard work up front and streamline everything else, in the future, and that's really paid off. And that now, an individual product doesn't take me nearly as long as what it did a year or two ago.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Great. Is there any, I don't know, one person, product, service, that made a huge positive shift in your business?
Hmm.
You.
Well, I'm going to try to
No,
stay humble,
as a,
but
as a joke.
I've had it's a mix. I definitely wouldn't have made the progress without some of those early customers that I talked about. Like, the people that were really, they got passionate about it, and they saw how cool it was and how much of a difference it could make in the community. And they posted reviews, they shared it in Facebook groups, and shared it with people at car meets and things. And that word of mouth is more powerful than anything else.
Right.
Customer satisfaction is by far the best sales technique that I have, right? So um, I think that was probably the biggest thing. And it's just been, like I said, it's been incremental. There have certainly been features that I've been able to add to the product that have opened it up to new markets. Recently I added some things so that it can work with, basically in place of some of those mass manufactured products that are out there. Like I said, at a cost decrease and a customization increase. So it's a pyramid, building up and constantly helping the product to answer all of the needs of the customer. So hard to point at one specific thing. It's just been such a slow progression.
Okay. All right. No worries then. And then this comes up in most of these interviews that I do right now. As far as like COVID is concerned, most of your sales being online, I'm assuming. Well, let me just ask, straight up, did you see an uptick or a downtick? Like, how'd
And
it go?
up to
Yeah.
actually, it's hard to know. There were a lot of factors. I think probably the number one factor is you've got a bunch of guys that are stuck at home with not a whole lot to do, right?
Mhm.
And then they've got extra money coming in from tax refunds, from the stimulus packages, things like that. And it's like, hey, I've got this car that's been sitting out back for 20 years. Like, let's get going on it. And so
Right. Right.
there's a lot more activity at the beginning during lockdowns and things, and more of that spending money in people's pocket that they had to be able to spend on things. And of course, I appreciate it as a small business. It helps me reinvest in the business and helps me grow and things. So, I think that's where the stimulus money needed to be going, was to small businesses, to restaurants and things. So I think in that way it worked really well. But it's hard to say too, because I've also been kicking up my advertising and things, and like I said, the natural progression of word of mouth kind of coincided with COVID. But definitely, I mean, my sales this year, I've already sold, I don't know, 125% of what I sold all of last year, right? So, I'm easily gonna more than double sales this year versus last year, and I hope the same thing for the year after that, and um, hope to keep the growth going.
Awesome. All right. Well, then on that note, where do you see your business in the next, 6 months to a year?
Yeah, so I've got the biggest thing on my plate right now is kind of the presentation and the look of the product. So the thing I'm least happy with about it is that it works exactly as it should. It works like a professional product, but when you look at it, it's like, it's not the prettiest presentation, right? Like the box that it's encased in looks like a dude built it on his bench, which is exactly the case. And so, I'm lucky that automotive customers tend to overlook those things, and they're fine with function over form a lot of times. But I know that's not always going to be the case. So that's kind of the biggest thing is creating a product that's easier to work with, easier for the customer to kind of fiddle with it and make small changes to it, and it looks like it belongs in, it belongs in $100, piece of junk car or a $50,000 restoration, right? So that it can bridge that gap.
Okay, cool. Well, then on that note, maybe for anyone that's listening, that might be able to serve you,
Mm-hmm.
is there a major challenge that you're facing right now that someone listening might be able to help with?
Now, that as far as that part of the business goes, I've got it pretty well started. I've got, I've been very lucky in that I've been able to build kind of a small group of people that I really trust to work with that, that do anything from circuit board design to 3D printing and things like that. Because, I stay plenty busy enough with just building the units and the customer service side of it. So I just can't do it all. I can't 3D print. I can't do
No.
all the cutting. I don't know enough about circuit board design that I can always do that myself. So, I've been lucky that I've got kind of a trusted network of people. But the biggest thing is just like I said earlier, getting the word out. If you're talking to somebody at a car meet or something, they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing something different with my dash or doing something with my gauges. Say, hey, like there's a product out there. Most people haven't heard of it, but it might work for you. It's called OneGauge, so on. But it's just that word of mouth, getting our name out there, that I think is the most tricky thing, especially those guys. Like I said, a lot of them are on Facebook, but there's a huge population of the automotive community. If they're not on Facebook, they're out working on their car, right? Like they should be.
Right.
I
Right.
would love to be in that boat more myself, but they are where their passion is. They're not arguing about politics on Facebook, right? So
Right.
they can be hard to reach those guys, and those are the guys that are going to be some of the most passionate users of the product, and that I kind of go that last mile of marketing is tough.
Okay. All right. Here's my one hardball question. So you're doing this basically part-time, but you're putting in the late hours. What's motivating you? Like, what's your why to keep this business up and running?
Good question. My wife asks me that once a week, pretty much.
Oh no.
No, it's not that bad. Luckily, like I said, it's gotten a lot better. The time commitment is much more manageable than it was a year or two ago. But now at this point, it's so cool to see the product being used, and there are builders that are using it, the people that I've respected for a long time that are doing really cool stuff. Um, it's just awesome to see something that I've made from scratch now being used in applications that I wouldn't have ever really dreamed of. And it's 99% of my interactions with customers are really awesome. I have really great people that I get to serve, and um, working with them, and seeing how excited they are, and seeing kind of that need that's met that can't be met anywhere else. That's kind of what keeps me going.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, let's do one more shameless plug. Best way
Sure.
for someone to purchase a OneGauge.
Yep, theonegauge.com, facebook.com/onegauge. or you can email me directly, info@theonegauge.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Michael, for
Bob.
being here. Again, 479 Spotlight's mission is to provide free promotion to local businesses in NWA to give them more exposure and create more trust in the community. To get notified of new interviews, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube by searching 479 Spotlight or by going to 479spotlight.com. And if you are a business owner and would like to be featured, just schedule your interview on 479spotlight.com. Thank you for joining us today, and keep having fun in NWA. Michael, you got any last words?
No, I'd say I appreciate it. This is an awesome community. It's fun to see how it's grown so much, and I appreciate the community support.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you.